Hey, and well done. You've made it here to the seventh M of the mind map principles, the seven emotions. So this is the last section of the mind map principles before we start moving into some more dedicated coaching. You could say this is the last section here of the theoretical aspect, but it's that theoretical aspect that really underpins everything else that we're about to do. So well done. You've made it. And you're about to start to uncover some of the most important aspects of the overall mind map system, so the emotions. So moving on with our journey into these seven core principles, this is where we're going to be unpacking the seven emotions, right? So obviously emotion is an E and it's not an M. But given that the purpose of emotion is to prioritize and regulate activity, in other words, motion, right? I'm giving us a little bit of wiggle room here, right? The emotions are a really important part of this overall process. You could say that literally everything we do or don't do, every decision we make or don't make, has its roots in emotion. So in this section, we're going to gain some understanding of the emotions that drive our behaviors, as well as look to the purpose each emotion serves and some of the triggers that bring them to primacy within the nervous system. In other words, why am I having this emotion? If I'm angry, why am I angry? If I'm sad, why am I sad? If I'm playful, if I'm happy, why are these things here right now? And what purpose do they serve? What are they trying to tell me? What are they trying to direct me to do as a result, right? So we're going to come to understand all of this by the end of this section. So by the end of this section, you'll be familiar with what's going on at a deeper level within each of your clients when they're displaying and acting out of emotion, as well as an understanding of what lies behind the strategies that you're going to be employing. That says implying. What are the strategies that you're going to be employing throughout the remainder of the program? Right? In other words, this section is going to give you the core understanding to understand exactly what's going on with your clients and why a certain strategy is being employed at a certain point in the coaching process. Okay, if you don't really understand what emotions are for and what purpose they serve and what triggers them and how they can be de-triggered, or if you want to put it that way, re-triggered, right? As in use an emotion to create something that could be more positive, you could say, rather than maybe some of the negative impact. All of this is going to come out of the information that you're going to start learning in this section. And of course, as I've reminded you all the way through the program up to this point, this is you could say this is like layer one, right? This lays the foundation, it's the basis, but it's layer one. As we move further into the course, you'll be revisiting each of these emotions again. In fact, each of these principles again and again and again, but at a deeper and deeper level. Okay, but this is a really important section. I can't emphasize that enough. So by the end of this section, you'll understand exactly what emotion is, what it's trying to tell us, how it shows up, and how it serves us. And just I've put down here as a hint that emotion is always in service to us, even if it doesn't seem that way. So even if you're getting angry, and even if the consequences of your emotion may seem to be negative, like you've had a big bust up with a partner, or you've got into a road rage incident, or any number of things, right? The emotion is trying to tell us something. It's trying to serve us. We just don't always act out in accordance with that service, but emotion is always in service to us. And even if that's rage, if that's anger, if that's grief, if that whatever it is, it's always in service. And we're going to see this more as we work through the module, of course. So we'll start our journey into understanding the emotions as we have with all of the topics we've covered so far. In other words, we're going to start at a 30,000 foot general overview of the concepts. Okay, just like we have with every part of the principle so far. We're going to start really high, 30,000 foot overview, so that we can all get speaking the same language, right? So when I'm talking about something to do with a language, you're talking to do something to do with an emotion, you've already got that idea in place of exactly what I'm speaking about. There's nothing worse than kind of diving into these concepts and be kind of thinking that something means something else. Okay, and particularly if you've come from a background where certain phraseology is used to describe certain things, certain aspects of the mind map process might be using slightly different linguistics or slightly different kind of metaphors and stuff. So it's really important to get us speaking the same language, so to speak. And then we'll start to deep dive into each of the 7 core emotions that we use as part of the mind map principles, and we'll discuss them in greater depth in order to build the foundation for the more practical coaching that's to follow. Okay, so again, we're still in that information knowledge building phase, but really what this is all about is taking this from information and theory and moving us into being absolutely great coaches. So before we move on to the first lesson, it's important to reiterate that you pay particular attention to this section, and please, please, please don't rush through it, right? Kind of, and I'm hoping that's true of the entire program, but pay particular attention to this. Don't rush through it, and I would say take your time with it and view each lesson at least twice so that the information sinks in and so that you have a lot more time to think about it more deeply, because we're not just trying to be informed about emotion, we're trying to truly understand them. And that's the really big distinction here, right? Kind of you can buy a book on emotion and whiz through it in an afternoon maybe, right? But it doesn't, that means that you're informed about it. It doesn't mean that you're knowledge about it. It doesn't mean that you're understanding about it. And that's a really important distinction that I'd like to make as we move forward into this section, right? So this section of the program will not only set up your coaching clients for huge success, but I promise you, by the time you reach the end of this section, you yourself will have wide eyes. You'll be looking at yourself differently. You'll be looking at your actions. You'll be looking at your relationships differently. And you have a far greater understanding of what your emotions have been doing for you, doing to you, causing, and all of this kind of stuff. So that by the time you get to the end of this, you're going to have, even before we move into the specific coaching practices, you're going to have an idea about some things that maybe you can start to work on immediately as a result of this next section of lessons. Okay, so we've got seven or eight lessons in this section. We've got an introductory lesson on the general principles, and then we'll dig into each one of the 7 emotions. Okay, so all that's left for you now to do is move on to the first lesson and enjoy.